Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing what your ex is thinking today. I provide audio coaching to help people try and get their ex back or get a new girlfriend or boyfriend. Check out my website for more details. www.dateme.tips. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing what your ex is thinking today. So if you have gone through a breakup and want to try to get your ex back, then you will likely be wondering what your ex is thinking. In today's podcast, I'm going to be discussing the likely thoughts of your ex during 3 different types of day. So let's get straight into this. And point number 1 is Christmas. Now, this doesn't actually have to be Christmas. It can be any huge, important day for you on the calendar. You might not even celebrate Christmas, but if you don't, I'm sure you have an equivalent day that you can associate this with. Now, for the millions and millions of people around the world who do celebrate Christmas, then Christmas Day is what I'm going to be using as an example. Now, what an ex will likely do on Christmas Day, just as anybody would, is naturally think back to their previous Christmas. Christmas Day comes but once a year, and the equivalents that you may be thinking of for your own situation, you would of course only have one day of the year of that as well. So people naturally think back to their previous Christmas, their previous important date on the calendar. This means that if you was part of your ex's life during that time, you will be thought of. So let's say, for example, you are a dumpee, you're wondering what your ex is thinking about on Christmas Day. Well, if you were with them last Christmas, it's pretty certain they will be thinking of you and what happened during that time. Now, if that Christmas Day wasn't a great day for you both, that can be something which can give you some insecurities. And it is true that they will be thinking of the day as a whole and the flashpoints. However, there is something which could help you, and that is known as the fading effect bias, and that is the principle that negative memories fade sooner than positive memories. Now, this doesn't mean that your ex will forget every negative thing which happened. It doesn't mean that you completely forget things that happen from your life, but what it does mean is they hold less value. So negative things over time hold less value than positive things, than positive memories. So even if last Christmas you didn't have the best time with your ex, as long as you was a part of it with them, they will likely pick out the positive moments more so than the negative. Now, if you wasn't with your ex last Christmas, if your relationship wasn't that long, or perhaps you spent time apart during that time, it is true that they will be less likely to think of you during the memories of that day. But Christmas Day is a time where we think of loved ones, past and present, and hence you will still likely be thought of. So even if your relationship wasn't long enough to have gone back to last Christmas, people naturally think of loved ones throughout their life on Christmas Day, and you will still likely be thought of. Just as I've said, as the other example, if you were together back then, but perhaps you weren't actually with each other for whatever reason, you will still likely be thought of. So important days on the calendar, which bring thoughts of love, thoughts of important people in your life story, this will mean that your ex, dumper or dumpee, will likely think of you. Now, if you are a dumper and you want to get your ex back now, you've changed your mind and you're thinking, what will my dumpee be thinking? There's even more likelihood of your dumpee thinking of you on a day such as Christmas, because for the dumpee, the struggle, the grind is real. They were dumped, the decision was taken out of their hands, and unfortunately for the dumpee, there is nothing more attractive than rejection. So you as a dumper, you can really be self-assured in the fact that your ex is very much likely thinking of you on Christmas Day, not just because of past memories, not just because of the thoughts that we have on Christmas where we consider loved ones, but just on the fact that a dumpee will naturally think of their ex more so because they lost that relationship when they didn't want to. This decision was taken out of their hands. They find their ex, the dumper, yourself, even more attractive than they once did. This has really pulled on their emotions, and they will be thinking of you even more. So whether you are a dumper or a dumpee, Christmas Day or an equivalent type of day, your ex will likely think of you. It is the memories of previous Christmases. It is the thoughts of loved ones past and present. And if you are a dumpee in particular, you will likely be thinking of your ex just on the thought of wondering what they're thinking. If you are a dumpee, you will likely be wondering what your ex is thinking. And if you're a dumper, wondering what your dumpee is thinking, well, it is likely about you. So as you can see, Christmas Day is a very important day on the calendar. The equivalent days, of course, are as well. And exes often think of each other. It's very natural, and although over time, as the years and years tick by, this will likely fade, you are still part of your life story. You will always be part of each other's journey, and this will be something which could easily be thought of in many years to come. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about what your ex is thinking today. And point number 2 is so many days after your breakup. So when we're considering different types of day, I thought I would use the example of X amount of days after a breakup. Excuse the pun. Now this could be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. You often hear people speak online about an amount of days that have been supposedly proven in some type of experiment or research, which would suggest that that is when patterns can form and patterns can be lost. Now, if we're to consider these days that people often bring up, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, it's my belief that relationships really do surpass these natural pattern theories, whether or not this is something which has accurately been proven in different types of settings and examples. I would believe that relationships, loved ones, those types of thoughts are deeper than regular patterns. That's just my belief. But anyway, I digress. Today we are speaking about what your ex is likely thinking. Of course, nothing can be guaranteed, but the likelihood is, what would your ex be thinking so many days after your breakup? Let's just use 90 days as an example. Well, if you're a dumper and you're thinking, what is my ex thinking about? What is a dumpee thinking about? Well, once again, like I was saying in point number 1, the dumpee is likely thinking of their ex, the dumper. Because dumpees, in this instance, are much more likely to be counting the days. If you could speak to a dumper and a dumpee and ask them, how many days has it been since your breakup? The dumpee would likely know to the day for a very, very long time. The dumper, on the other hand, will probably quite quickly lose track of the precise days. They might not even know the date on the calendar or when they ended the relationship. Where the dumpee, it is burned in their memory. This, of course, is once again because of how the relationship ended. The dumpee had this decision taken away from them. It was a huge shock. Even if they felt the relationship wasn't going well, the end of a relationship is always a shock. It is like a death. When we speak about other examples of grief, such as death, people who are dying will often say that even though they know this is happening to them, it is still a shock when the end is coming near. Okay, so in the same regard in relationships, even if you know your relationship isn't doing well, it still comes as a huge shock to most dumpees when a relationship ends. And therefore, they are more likely to remember the date on the calendar the relationship ended. They are most likely thinking of their ex for months, if not years to come, and they will probably be counting the days for a good while. Now, if a dumpee is asking me the question, what is my ex, the dumper, thinking of in, say, 90 days? Well, this will depend on what is going on during the dumper's life on that particular day. Unlike the dumpee, the dumper is very unlikely to be counting the days. They're not going to be thinking, well, it's 90 days, it's 100 days, it's X amount of days since the breakup, and I'm going to think of my dumpee now. That is unlikely to happen. But if there is triggers, if there are situations which remind a dumper of their dumpee, this is when they will still think of their ex. It's very natural for this to happen, whether or not it's been 30, 60, 90, 180, 365 days, it doesn't matter. But when we ask in general, so many days after a breakup, what are both people thinking from a breakup? Well, the dumpee likely knows to a day how long it's been. The dumper likely doesn't realise this, but it doesn't mean they're not thinking of their ex. It just means we won't be thinking of them because of this milestone, which the dumpee sees and the dumper doesn't. But it does mean instead that the dumper will need some type of trigger. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about what your ex is thinking today. And point number 3 is some random Monday. So when I say some random Monday, this means any day on the calendar which isn't uniquely special to yourself, your ex, your relationship, your country, your society, just some random day. I'm just saying some random Monday. Well, this depends on the level of romantic emotional attraction to what both people are feeling. For an example, when a breakup takes place, a dumpee is feeling a high level of attraction towards their ex. The dumper, it has increased since they've been broken up with. But the dumper, unfortunately, is feeling a very low level of romantic emotional attraction. That is why the relationship was ended. Now, if you want more support in understanding the concept and how you can try and increase the chance of getting your ex back, then this might be the time for you to consider my audio coaching service, where we speak one-on-one about your unique situation. My podcasts have to be generalised because I have a large demographic of people who listen, but if we speak one-on-one, we can really get down to the important elements of your unique story. If you want to know more about my audio coaching service, please check out my website, www.dateme.tips. So as I was saying, when we're thinking of romantic emotional attraction, the dumpee is feeling a high level. After the breakup, the dumper is feeling a low level. That is why the relationship ended. But when we're speaking about some random Monday, when is this random Monday? Is it a few weeks later? Is it a few months later? Is it a few years later? This will change. We are always growing. We're always moving in one direction or another. Levels of romantic emotional attraction can grow and they can decrease. If a dumpee does everything right, they can increase the chance of them getting their ex back via growing romantic emotional attraction in their dumper's mind. So this random Monday, the dumper's level of attraction might be really growing and therefore they may be thinking of their ex. A dumpee, on the other hand, it could be well into the future this random day, and maybe their level of attraction has started to drop and they're not thinking of their ex. If somebody's feeling a high level of romantic emotional attraction, they will think of their former partner. If they don't, then they won't. However, there is a caveat. Putting that to one side, any trigger can make someone think of their ex at any time. This could be 30 years later. A trigger is a trigger and that will bring a memory. So examples of triggers could be a smell. It could be a smell of perfume, a smell of aftershave, a smell of cologne. These smells which could remind you of your ex. It could be watching a certain TV show, a certain movie. It might bring back a memory of where you first watched this. Possibly you was with your ex. Maybe you've gone out to dinner, you're eating a certain meal, maybe this is the meal that your ex used to make you, or you used to cook for your ex. Maybe you went to a restaurant and this is what you ate. That will make you think of your ex and that will make them think of you. Speaking of restaurants and locations as a whole, if you go to a certain location that you went with your ex, again, this can count as a trigger. So as you can see, romantic emotional attraction to one side, even if you're feeling a low level, a trigger can make you think of your ex. And there's plenty more than the ones I've just mentioned there. So some random day, it could even be today. You're wondering, is my ex thinking of me? Well, firstly, if they have a high level of attraction or a growing level of attraction, then the answer is yes. And if you're trying to grow that level, I can increase your chance of being able to do so. Of course, nothing's guaranteed. There is no 100% guaranteed way to get your ex back. Nothing works 100% of the time, and nothing fails 100% of the time. But if you do enough of the right things, you can increase that chance of success by growing attraction. And if it's growing right now, your ex just might be thinking of you. If this level of attraction is really low, then this will mean that they're not thinking of you. Ordinarily today, this wouldn't have been something that would have happened. However, if a trigger hits them, if something takes place in their life today, which makes them think back to a time with you, then yes, they will be thinking of you. The moral of the story is that your ex could think of you at any time, and you could think of your ex at any time. Presumably, by the fact you're listening to this podcast, you are feeling a high level of romantic emotional attraction to your former partner. Maybe you're the dumpee. Maybe you're the dumper who has changed their mind. But if you are feeling this and you're wondering what your ex is thinking now, this will depend on their level of attraction and all the triggers. Always remember that if you push forward with positivity, you can improve your lifestyle in many different ways. And honestly, I truly believe this. With or without your ex, you'll have a positive future, because if you don't get your ex back, you can find someone even better. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.
Yeah, if you miss your ex, we can help with that. Help you get him back, or we can help find you someone else. Yeah, Vincent Bo, the relationship coach, giving you some insight, bringing you a new approach. DateMe.tips, go and check the site, giving you advice, helping with your love life. Get your ex back, or move to the next. Ain't no sweat, you know Vincent Bo got you. Finding love ain't no problem. Yeah, DateMe.tips, check it out now.